Good afternoon, Professor. For my presentation, I will be talking about the different type of audit opinions that can be expressed on a company's financial statements. The objective of an auditor is to form an opinion on whether the financial statements are presented fairly in all material aspects in accordance with the applicable financial reporting framework. Financial statements generally mean a complete set of general purpose financial statements, including related notes. The applicable financial reporting framework determines the form and the content of a complete set of financial statements. Now, in order to form an opinion, the auditor should evaluate whether the financial statements are adequately disclosed. Accounting policies are consistent with applicable financial reporting framework. Management's accounting estimates are reasonable. Usually the auditor will make their own independent estimates and then compare them to the management's estimates to make sure they are reasonable. Information presented in the financial statements is relevant, reliable, comparable, and understandable. The financial statements provide adequate disclosure to enable intended users to understand the effect of a material transaction and effects. Now, this is pertaining to a company either probably omitting a disclosure from the outside parties to hide certain information that affects the company negatively. The terminology in the financial statements is appropriate. This also pertains to misleading outside users, where the company might use complex information to either hide or confuse the true value of the information in the financial statements. The overall structure and content of the financial statements is fairly presented. The financial statements present the underlying transaction events in a manner that achieves fair presentation. Now, these evaluations made by the auditor can vary from different companies and the operations that they are in. Now, based off the auditor's evaluations, with correlating appropriate audit evidence and work papers, the auditor can come up with 3 different opinions under both the GAAP and GAS issues. Now, both on the GAAP and GAS, you can have an unmodified opinion. This is a clean opinion, stating that the financial statements present fairly in all material aspects, the financial position, results of operations, and cash flows of the entity in conformity with the applicable financial reporting framework. Now, also with the unmodified opinion, you can have an emphasis on matter, which relates to the financial information in the financial statements, or an other matter paragraph, which relates to the information not in the financial statements. Now, for example, you can have both these would be used for either a going concern, significant subsequent event, material inconsistency that is not information in the financial statements, or a change in audit opinion. Now, by using both these paragraphs, they do not affect the unmodified opinion. Both on the GAAP and GAS, you can have qualified opinion. This states that except for the effects of the materials to which the qualification relates, the financial statements present fairly. Now, under GAAP, this is when an auditor concludes that a misstatement is material but not pervasive. For instance, an auditor is saying that there is a misstatement in the financial statements, but other than this misstatement, the financial statements present fairly and it will not be misleading. Under GAS, this is when the auditor is unable to obtain a sufficient appropriate evidence, which concludes that the possible effects of any undetected misstatements could be material but not pervasive. Now, for just GAAP, you can have an adverse opinion, which is usually the worst opinion. This states that the financial statements do not present fairly the financial position, results of operation, and cash flows of the entity in conformity with the applicable financial reporting framework. This is when an auditor concludes that a misstatement is material and pervasive. For example, this can be an inadequate disclosure by the company that leads to being material and pervasive to the financial statements. Under just GAS, you can have a disclaimer. This states that the auditor does not express an opinion on the financial statements because the auditor was not able to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence to provide a basis for opinion. Now, because the auditor was unable to obtain the sufficient appropriate audit evidence, the auditor concludes that the possible effects of any undetected misstatements could be both material and pervasive. Now, for example, this is when a company tells the auditor that they want to omit the cash flows from the audit. Now, after explaining the 3 different opinions for both GAAP and GAS, here are the issues that will pertain to them. So under the 3 opinions for just GAAP, the GAAP issues are inadequate accounting policy, inadequate financial statement presentation, inadequate disclosures, and inadequate estimates. These will both lead to the unmodified, the qualified, and the adverse based on the auditor's judgment of the pervasiveness of the material misstatement. Now, under gas, the three issues are insufficient evidence, which is usually a qualified opinion, but based on the material pervasiveness could be a disclaimer. You have significant going concern uncertainty and the lack of independence. Again, these are the three gas issues that correlate to an unmodified, a qualified, and disclaimer, which is also based on the auditor's judgment of the scope limitation in the financial statements. Thank you, Professor. This will be all for my presentation.